The gentleman yields back. I now recognize another fellow New Yorker, Mr. Goldman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Criswell, thank you for being here today. I want to focus as the representative from New York City in the district that includes the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. We in New York City are incredibly proud of the efforts that the city is making to welcome and support migrants who are escaping horrific conditions in their own countries to seek the American dream, as so many have done throughout our history. We, of course, are a country of immigrants. I certainly am a descendant of a grandmother who escaped anti-Semitism in Russia and came through Ellis Island. And so this is something that most of us who represent New York feel great pride in. It is incredibly burdensome on the city right now. And I want to focus a little bit on what FEMA can do, not only to alleviate the financial burden on New York City and New York, which has in recent months, since the rolling off of Title 42, seen an increase in the number of newly arrived migrants as the influx of migrants crossing the southern border has dramatically been reduced. To me, there seem to be two issues that FEMA has direct oversight over. The first is an emergency declaration, and I want to discuss that with you in a minute. The second, of course, is the Shelter and Services Program. New York has received a little over $100 million from that program, and I would just make a strong plea to recognize that those cities who have welcomed, supported, provided shelter, housing, healthcare, vaccines, shots, and assistance in making sure that those seeking a better life are able to do that, and in fact, quite importantly, contribute significantly to our economy. What is the process that FEMA is going through right now to evaluate how to distribute the Shelter and Services Program money?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. Just to give a little background on the program, we had the Emergency Food and Shelter Program for humanitarian efforts that Congress directed funding towards a few years ago. Over this past year, that program is now transitioned into what is called a Shelter and Service Program. Under the EFSP humanitarian program, the funding was given to FEMA and then transferred to a board because it's part of an existing program we have that supports some of the homeless efforts across the country. That board made the determination on the funding that would be eligible for reimbursement, mostly at that point in time from jurisdictions at the southern border that were taking care of migrants. As we transition into the Shelter and Service Program, we are moving into a grant-directed program versus a board-distributed program. And with that, we are using existing data and giving an allocation to jurisdictions based on the data we have on the encounters that they're experiencing, the costs that they've stated that they're experiencing, and doing a direct allocation. The purpose behind the direct allocation is so we can expedite the amount of money going out there instead of going through a longer grant program like some of our other programs. This was the first iteration of this when New York received just over $100 million in June, and that's the direction that will continue to go with the Shelter and Services Program.
My understanding is that there has been significant reimbursement from the Shelter and Services Program to localities on the border, and there continues to be. But I am concerned that FEMA is reimbursing cities, towns, localities on the southern border who are shipping migrants to New York City potentially against their will. There are many that are coming in to New York because they want to be there, but there still remain about 20% who are being bused to New York and to other northern cities against their will. I would ask you, as the administrator for FEMA, to stop reimbursing those towns who are busing migrants against their will. I believe that is money that should be better spent elsewhere, and they should not be incentivized to do so. I hope we have another round. I see my time is up.